Basically, people ask me, this is a question that I get every day. Why do you devote so much time and energy to animals and not to children? And my answer, which is standard, is in helping animals, I'm helping children. Because these children are seeing how these animals are being treated. That example of abuse towards an animal imprints into this child, and the mind of this child is being distorted. Rather than kindness and compassion, we're heading him into the path of criminal behavior. And the hallmark, and people fail to understand this, the hallmark of criminal behavior is animal abuse as a child. If you can cut and prevent the cycle from developing, you can provide a universe of solutions and successes to that child. I'm a forensic expert. I am a thanatologist, which is that it means that I'm an expert on death and dying. I deal with people that other people don't want to deal, which is the criminally insane. So that expertise is very helpful in dealing with animals because you're dealing with damaged population on both sides of the spectrum.
Dogs, they vary so much. You know, their characters are so individual, and very much like people, they deal with difficult situations in different ways. Some people deal with abuse and stay and continue and never get aggressive and never get up, they just put up with that abuse, and others will become very defensive and very aggressive very quickly. And I think that's the thing we have to always remember, is that there is no one way of dealing with a situation. All our history, everything that we've learned as we've been growing up, impacts on the way we make a decision about a certain situation.
Particularly these days, there's a challenge with animal welfare because people see them as a disposable item, like the rest of their life these days is something to be had when you want it suddenly and you want it instantly, and then when you're not interested anymore, it can be disposed of. It's not seeing animals again as a sentient being, as something that has feelings, can feel pain, can feel neglect. So I think it's more about the fast society that we're living in and the challenges with throwaway consumerism.
Interesting enough, until a few years ago in our city, the shelter was at a dumping place of the city. It wasn't a shelter, it was a horrible building with dogs dying, and it was right on the landfill of the city.
So when we started our work in 2005 and 2006 with the education programme and the neutering programme retrospectively, there was over 25,000 dogs entering into the pound system. And now we're at 12,500 dogs. So it should have reduced an awful lot more. So we really need to look into why this is happening.
Education, education, education. And it's education that has to go both ways. You have to educate people regarding animals, and you have to educate the animals to be also compassionate towards people. Because some animals, like people, they are so damaged that it takes a long time to get them to begin to trust. And some human beings are so damaged that it takes a long time to get them to trust.
Any dog can get aggressive. Any person can get aggressive. It's a response to a stressor. If If you're frightened, your natural response, your adrenaline goes up, so your fight or flight response is what keeps us alive. It's a natural response. The reason why dogs get aggressive is because the lower levels of body language that they will use to show that they are anxious or worried, fearful, gets ignored or isn't understood by people.
In 2013 in Bucharest, there was a very terrible situation in which a small boy was apparently killed by dogs. It's very debatable whose fault it was. It's very debatable what dogs they were. There are no clear answers, but it triggered a mass of hate towards any type of dogs, especially street dogs, because usually they are the first to be accused, and it triggered the instant change of the law. Previously we had a law saying you are not supposed to euthanize healthy animals. You are not supposed to keep them in shelters and then kill them after a certain number of days. You can do TNR as a normal single method to decrease the population. Because of the incident, everything changed. I think it was really a disaster where the media escalated everything, where somebody played on that, The reason why we didn't have good regulations concerning stray dogs in Romania has always been that for some people it produced money. Stray dogs produce money. That's definitely true. I'll explain the system. For instance, a city has an animal shelter which doesn't have the right conditions, but it has staff on paper. It has staff employed, it uses food, it cleans, it disinfects, it sprays, it treats, it vaccinates, it deworms, it deflees, whatever. They can have it on paper, but if you go there, chances are that it's not being done. And if somebody is ill-intended and wants to make money out of it, he can. The villages made a contract with one company, offering pretty large sums between, let's say, maybe 70 euros per dog, 80 euros per one dog. And they went out, collected the dogs, invoiced in the end. Nobody traces really what happens to these dogs. They are supposed to keep them for 14 days and they can euthanize. They don't even have to have their own facility. They take them from the street, they cash the money, they put them in a shelter, doesn't have to be very great, and then 14 days it's over.
I think criticism of any humane society or animal welfare organization is inevitable. I think a big part of what goes into that is there are many different ethical standpoints and points of view on what humane care and appropriate care is. That doesn't mean that ours is right and theirs are wrong, but at some point everyone needs to make that individual decision, and organizations need to make those decisions on what they feel is the most humane care for the animals.
There's dignity in you doing something for something. I think you convince people by letting them see what you do and what you believe. I established the first program within the prison system in which I use pet therapy. The incidence of suicides, the incidence of self-injurious behavior was by the roof. Within a week, the incidence went to 0. This is therapy from both parts. So it's a win-win. I have several dogs that are very close to my heart. They have stories that are both beautiful but joyful when you see what we were and when you see what we are, and you see the transformation in their faces. The eyes tell the tale. There's nothing better than to see a dog that feels let down by humans, and then you give him a little bit of love, and the eyes tell the tale. That's it.